My 27F fiancé 28M started dating me to get revenge on my brother 30M. I don't even know where to start or how to explain this, but yesterday my fiancé said he needed to have a serious conversation with me. He kept telling me he was sorry that he had to tell me this, but he didn't want our marriage to start on a lie. To cut a long story short, my brother used to date his cousin, they're as close as siblings, and he got her hooked on drugs, got her pregnant and dumped her. She ended up losing the baby and spiraling badly. She tried to commit suicide multiple times before her family forced her to get help. He said he wanted revenge on my brother, and when we met at a bar by coincidence, he came up with the plan to date me to do it. He said he was planning to break up with me as soon as he got me to fall in love with him, so my brother would experience a fraction of the pain his family had to after what he had done to his cousin. I asked him why he didn't, and he said by the time I said the words to him he already felt the same way and couldn't go through with it. He said he would have told me sooner, but he hadn't wanted to hurt me, but he also knew we couldn't get married until I knew. I asked him for some space, and he left the house temporarily, and I've just been sitting here reevaluating our entire 6-year relationship. In hindsight, it makes sense. When we first met, my friend, who is much more his type, was blatantly hitting on him, but he didn't even give her any attention. He had a single-minded focus on me the entire night, and at the time I thought it was really flattering that this super attractive guy was ignoring my equally attractive friend to talk to little old me. Now it makes a lot more sense. I never had any real relationship experience before my fiancé, so I thought the excessive gift-giving, dates and love bombing were normal. Now, I'm not so sure. My brother's hate for my fiancé also makes a lot more sense now. I always thought it was just a protective older brother thing, but if he suspected something was fishy about my fiancé, the way he behaves around him doesn't seem so unreasonable now. I really don't know what to do now. Our whole relationship feels like a massive lie now. I honestly just feel really overwhelmed, hurt and sick right now. What do I do? Too long did not read. My fiancé started dating me to get revenge on my brother for seriously hurting his cousin. He planned to break up with me as soon as I fell in love with him, but couldn't go through with it. I don't know where our relationship goes from here. Honestly, I'm more concerned about your brother here. Did you know he'd done this? Do you expect him and your fiancé to be able to bury the hatchet and act like things are fine at family events, assuming you decide to continue the relationship? My knee-jerk reaction is, well, good riddance, but 6 years is a long time to keep up that sort of facade. His feelings now are much more relevant than how he felt in the beginning. I can't imagine this is an easy thing to even try to process. And your feelings are so valid. There are 2 separate issues to unpick here. First, your brother's shitty life choices hurt someone immensely. 6 years ago he destroyed a girl's life with lasting consequences, and I hope he somehow addressed that. Your brother's hate is another question. Did he know what the fiancé was doing? Or was it the relationship with the girl? Either way, seriously re-evaluate your relationship with him. Second, your fiancé's motives were crud. Now he realizes he cares about you. People do change. If you go ahead, you both need couples counseling to talk about the lies that began your relationship and his motivations behind it. This is such a breach of trust that you need a professional to walk you through rebuilding those bridges. Your brother is an asshole. Your fiancé is an asshole. If you want to marry this guy still, it's time to head to couples counseling. This is a very long lie by omission he committed. Info. Where his family in on all this as well? Did they know of the connection with your brother and his cousin? I think maybe you should ask your brother his side of the story. This leaves many unanswered questions where your brother's ex could be blaming all her misfortunes instead of taking some credit here. Is your brother into drugs? Did he force his ex into doing drugs, or did she agree? Did he sexually assault her to get her pregnant, or did they not use protection? Why did they break up? Was it because of the drugs? Did he cheat? Did she cheat? Was it because he wasn't ready to be a father? Did she miscarry because of the drugs? From stress? He said he wanted revenge on my brother, and when we met at a bar by coincidence, he came up with the plan to date me to do it. He said he was planning to break up with me as soon as he got me to fall in love with him, so my brother would experience a fraction of the pain his family had to after what he had done to his cousin. So it sounds like a plan conceived on the fly in a bar, probably while drinking. I asked him why he didn't, and he said by the time I said the words to him he already felt the same way and couldn't go through with it. Here's the real question. How long was this? How long was he only pretending to like you? 2 or 3 months is completely different from 4 to 5 years of deception. Your fiancé is the type of person who thinks it's okay to hurt an innocent person to get revenge. His plan changed not because he had a change of heart, but because he liked you and his self-interest won out over his desire for revenge. No thank you. What's important is that now it is genuine. The only solution is to complete the circle. Make your brother fall in love with you to get back at your fiancé. I saw that you mentioned he was stringing you along for a year before he fell in love with you. That's a really long time to be plotting revenge, and I would be suspicious of him going forward, which isn't a healthy way to start a marriage. What I don't get is, did your brother know that your fiancé was the cousin of his ex? Like, was he just okay pretending that didn't happen and not filling you in? Plus it seems obvious your fiancé won't forgive your brother, so how do you plan to navigate that whole situation moving forward? This is like a movie plot. You have to answer the question of if you think you can get past it. In my opinion, it was extremely fucking stupid but understandable. If he honestly loves you now, I'd say you two can make it work. 6 years is a long time. By now I'm sure his feelings are genuine and you two could very well be happy together. You're about to marry someone who thought it was acceptable to intentionally hurt an innocent person to get revenge on the person he was angry at. That says a lot about his character. That's something to ponder. This is like a plot in those stupid movies. In those movies, the protagonist is usually the one with this stupid revenge plan. And in the end, they get forgiven for some dumbass reason. In the real world, it is such a vile thing to do, tbh. I don't think Reddit can give you your answer, but I recommend a lot of counseling. I personally would break up with him, but I'd also understand why you would want to continue. Update us please. Your fiancé sucks. First, are you sure that meeting at the bar was a coincidence? A crazy plan thought up while drunk at the bar is much more forgivable than stalking you and attempting to seduce you. Based on how he focused on you at the bar makes it seem premeditated. Second, was anyone else made aware of this plan, or was it just your fiancé? What worries me is the way your fiancé handled his grief and anger at what happened to his cousin. Seeking revenge is not a healthy coping mechanism and absolutely needs to be addressed. If he did it once, he could do it again to you, if you ever hurt or disappointed him, and that is not a threat you want hanging over your head in a relationship. If you really want to move forward with this relationship, I would tell him that you require couples therapy and individual therapy for him to deal with his anger and loss. He needs to learn coping mechanisms that don't involve trying to hurt and damage others. Let me break this down. He was willing to hurt a 100% innocent woman to get revenge on someone. Think about the type of person you have to be to do something like that. I'm not even getting started on your brother, since that isn't the focus of your post. I don't blame you for being disturbed. There's something incredibly sociopathic about fiancé ever thinking his plan was a good one. It says something about his standards regarding how he conducts himself. So, he's been decent to you because he fell in love with you. If he falls out of love with you, will any treatment he feels like dishing out be okay? Which movie is it from? I would call of the wedding and have a long think about your relationship with him. This seems over the top calculated. I would also confront your brother. This much anger and hate doesn't just magically appear. You're gonna have to talk to your brother about this. Unless your brother is that type of person, it could honestly be a situation where he's solely blaming the situation on your brother. Wow. A revenge plot? Really? You're not even directly involved. That's one of the most excessively dramatic things ever. He was willing to hurt you, a completely innocent person, to hurt someone else. That says a lot about his morals. If you can look past all that, I say ignore it and enjoy your marriage, as long as he can get along with your in-laws. Everybody's happy. But do you think he's changed? Does he realize how wrong it was? Okay. Have you ever seen the movie She's All That? Because it's kind of like that. Except 6 years long. Honestly, he told you the truth, and yeah, he totally could have told you sooner, but you'd have probably dumped him and he was probably scared to lose you. He loves you, he wants to marry you, it's not like your whole relationship has been bullshit, just how you guys started dating. You've spent 6 years with this dude getting to know him. Do you think that he's the person you know and love, or do you now only see him as the 22-year-old guy who tried to get revenge but didn't because he fell in love with you instead? Edited to add, your brother sounds pretty douchey. I don't have anything else to add that others have already said. It's Reddit though, and that's not going to stop me rolling on the floor laughing. I agree, you need a lot more information here before you make a choice. Talk to his family, get their story about his cousin. Talk to your brother. Hell, talk to the cousin if she's in a state to talk. Once you have all of the pieces and can reasonably say whether your fiancé's story is crap or not, you can decide if you want to forgive him. People start relationships for all kinds of crazy reasons. At least he came forward to you at all. He didn't have to do that. It says a lot about the person he is now. If his story is legit and it does prove to be too much for you, though we don't think anyone here would hold it against you. Good luck, and please update when you can. The reason he started dating you is terrible. But 6 years is a lot of time to grow. He had no reason to tell you this except because he loves you and wants to be honest with you. I think you should forgive him, but you should also encourage your brother to go to therapy. Definitely counseling for you too if you continue this relationship. Also a sit down with brother, cause that will definitely cause drama in the future. Maybe a prenup to cover your own as, if you've got anything of value you'd like to protect before going into a marriage. Maybe consider postponing the wedding a bit, to make sure this isn't head games. There was a sort of lie in the dating phase of your relationship. It was almost 6 years ago and your partner came to you about it. I would try and move on. Okay, this may sound weird, but he started the relationship to get back at your family, but he ended up falling in love with you, which means he still loves you. I don't think you should dump him, even though what he did was wrong. He knew it was wrong and told you about it. Maybe get unengaged from him. Don't end the relationship completely, but just tell him you don't want to stay engaged just yet. If he understands, then he should be nice about it. If he doesn't, then you should end it. Hope this helps. You need to talk to your brother. He almost drove someone to kill themselves, and talk to your fiancé. I know if someone I know did this to my sister, I would kill them. I am just a kid, so take it with a grain of salt. It sounds like his anger turned into love. Saying 6 years was him lying is a bit much. No one lies like that for that long. And at this point it would have been easier for him to never tell you, if lying was so important to him, and it wasn't. That's why he told you. Your brother sounds like a puss and a coward. I don't understand how this is an issue that your fiancé was hurt very badly and channeled everything into you, but in a positive way. Like, this fact comes across has an obsession towards you, which jokes on him. He likes you and that's a win-win. There's a lot of growing up that happens between 22 and 28 years of age. The good news is that you aren't engaged to his drunk, hurt, misguided 22-year-old self. You're engaged to a guy who could have gotten away with this forever, who could have rationalized it away in his head, but who in the end still felt it necessary to tell you the truth and face the consequences. It's okay to still feel hurt by this. Still, yours would hardly be the first relationship that began for the wrong reasons but still evolved into a strong and healthy relationship. If there aren't other big red flags in this relationship, I'd be inclined to maybe work through this in therapy, rather than throw out the relationship. You don't even know if Mr. Revenge Plot's disclosure was actually part of the plan. Because let's face it, telling you this has destroyed you. He said he intended to tell you sooner, but really telling you now has been even more devastating. He has succeeded in causing the pain he intended to cause. All you can do right now is get into some therapy. You obviously can't marry this dude right now. He literally could have taken this to the grave, because whatever his intentions, if he changed his mind it wouldn't have affected you. Also, your brother is shit for not telling you there might be a different motive for your dude to be with you. Along with being just a regular terrible person for what he did to the cousin. Oof, I'm sorry op. This is a lot to find out. Take all the time you need and don't feel pressured. He should realize the seriousness of it since he was so serious about talking to you. Honestly, don't tell your friends either, if you can help it. With something like this, they might not be super understanding if you decide to stay with him. I think you first need to focus on how you feel about his actions in general, not as they apply to you. Are you okay, morally, with him being so vengeful and thinking that inflicting pain on you, an innocent person, is justified? Then think about your own hurt. Honestly, I'm inclined to say that if he loves you now and he's loved you for 5 years, this is something you can forgive. My dad asked my mom out on a dare. She actually tried to stand him up on said date. 43 years later and they still together and happy. Just because it started poorly doesn't mean it won't work, and it doesn't mean he doesn't truly love you. I would talk to your brother about things, and then take some time to yourself to process everything. If your fiancé really loves you, he will patiently wait for you while you do this. It sounds like he truly fell in love with you along the way. If he's good to you and you love him, work through it. Honestly, what he did at the start was very immature, but people change a lot in 6 years. I'm definitely not the same person I was 3 years ago. Was it wrong of him to try to hurt you out of spite for your brother? Yes, personally, if your brother did that to my sister, I would have been just as pissed off and conniving as your finance, but I wouldn't drag someone innocent into the picture. However, I think it's important to mention that he had a change of heart and didn't go through with it in the end. Either way, 6 years is a long way to come, and I think you should both head off to couples counseling to try to make your relationship work. However, if this is a deal breaker for you, then by all means, you have every right to walk away. From what you said, he doesn't seem that bad of a guy. He didn't go through with it despite his pain, and he fell in love with you. And respects you enough to tell you. I think that's something to appreciate. I swear you could make another cheesy love movie out of this concept. OFC, assuming it's fully true. But your brother though, if it's true what he did, he's a total piece of shit. But I understand he's your brother. You may need to have a talk with him and your lover, because it wouldn't be healthy if they kept so much disdain for each other if you get married. I think his honesty says something. He didn't have to tell you. I mean, it's not a good way to start a relationship by any means, and it was a shitty thing to even consider doing, but it sounds like he may have grown as a person and genuinely loves you. I would be most concerned about whether he still thinks it's okay to use an innocent person to get revenge on another. Make sure he has grown beyond that. I would highly suggest relationship counseling. It really seems like he loves you if he stayed after that, and it's been 6 years. I don't know if you would feel the same way, but for me it would almost prove he loved me so much because he wanted to break up in his plan but then fell in love. Yes, it was a very terrible thing to do, but no one got hurt in the end. Other than now, the fact he came clean tells me he really cares about you and wants you to know everything. He wanted it out on the table. Listen, the fact that he's still here after 6 years is proof enough his feelings now are real. If you really love him and still want to marry, go for it. I think the fact that he's being honest about this when he totally could have just buried this forever and kept things as they were, that integrity takes guts when it can totally detonate the marriage, and proves he's serious about this. Again, if the love is there, do it. If not, then that's what your heart desires. Trust your instincts and follow them. It seems he realized the error of his ways, and he did come clean. I think that if his feelings are genuine now, as they seem to be, you should give him a shot. Actions speak louder than words, and it seems like he has changed his actions. It's totally normal for you to lose some trust because of this. After all, he did lie to you for a long time. I don't think this has to break your relationship though. He did stay and seems to care enough to have motivated him to confess, but I definitely would call off the wedding for the time being and would absolutely get some couples counseling. It may take a while to rebuild that trust, but if you feel that this relationship is worth it, then it's definitely not impossible. This is hard, but based on some responses, here is my advice. 1. Find out when exactly his feelings changed and why. 2. Find out your brother's side in this. Hey brother, what happened between you and cousin? 3. Couples counseling. This is a lot. But I kind of give him kudos for being honest and giving you the full truth of it before getting married. It just really, really sucks. I'm sorry. I suggest individual counseling for you both, too. If you can't trust him again, that's the end. Go to couples counseling. Would have done the same thing if I was your fiancé. Your bro is a bad person, you should cut him off. Haley, Nathan and Lucas, One Tree Hill. Also, whatever he may have been intending 6 years ago, was just that 6 years ago. I think you need to look at the man he has been the past 6 years and ask if you are ready to give up your relationship over this. Clearly once he got to know you his motivation changed. It's not like he's been playing the long game for 6 years to break your heart. You dated for 6 years and your brother never told you about his ex-fiancé's cousin. Your brother is the bigger asshole for letting you go through with this relationship if he knew that you would have been hurt. Your fiancé might have dated you to get back at your brother, but him telling you this is proof that he can't go through hurting you. He's fallen in love with you. He cares more about you than his vendetta against your brother. You should have some space for now, but try couples marriage counseling together after you clear your head. What I get from this is that your brother is a terrible person. Honestly, I get why your fiancé wanted revenge. But he confessed and it's because he actually loves you. He would not have stayed with you this long if he didn't.